So with that, that concludes our club business for now. We're really excited for our speaker. I'm going to invite Joan Johnson, who's director of the Milwaukee Public Library, to announce our illustrious speaker today.
Thank you, President Hung. And I just very quickly want to say thank you so much to the Rotary Club of Milwaukee for the support that has been given to the library over the years. It truly, the project that they funded truly does benefit the community and will for years to come. So the beautiful community room at the Central Library is being enjoyed by many, many people, organizations, including the mayor for a cabinet meeting recently. So thank you. Okay, but my job here today actually is to introduce the mayor, and I really want to say how honored I was when Aaron called to ask me if I would do this. I have to tell you, when I was looking for somebody's phone number, I came across a card that I never threw away, and it was when I looked at it, I just had to say to myself, I knew there was something special about this person when I met him back in the late 2000s. It is the business card for one Cavalier Johnson. I'll have to show it to some of you. And it says Office of the Mayor, and his position at the time, staff assistant to the mayor. And then I started changing his title as his positions changed. So I crossed off staff assistant to the mayor and wrote alderman in. And then I crossed that off and wrote mayor with an exclamation point. And so I'm going to keep holding on to this. So our speaker today wrestles with the most vexing challenges our city faces. How do we resolve decades-old fiscal problems? What steps do we take to make Milwaukee safer? How do we engage and motivate young people so their lives are broadened and our city's potential is realized? Cavalier Johnson won his position 13 months ago in a history-making election. His youth, his race, and his backgrounds set him apart from his predecessors. The mayor's policies are informed by his life experience. As a young person, his future was changed by a YMCA program called Sponsor a Scholar. And now he champions similar efforts that offer direction in the lives of teens and preteens. His own family's housing insecurity strongly influences his approach to citywide housing policy. And the crime and violence he saw as a child adds urgency to his commitment to safety. I have to add, he believes modern libraries are an essential component of Milwaukee's future, and we appreciate his tenure on the Milwaukee Public Library Board of Trustees. With an even temper and plenty of common sense, Mayor Johnson has engaged people across the political spectrum to address the needs of his hometown. It is my pleasure to welcome Mayor Cavalier Johnson to the Rotary Club of Milwaukee.
Oh, I was just kidding Joan that she didn't have Common Council president in there. That's okay. Well, good afternoon, Rotarians. It's my pleasure to be with you this afternoon. And Joan, thank you again for that great introduction. First, let me start off by saying that I really do appreciate this club's flexibility. I know that I was supposed to be here, what was it, a month ago, maybe 2 months ago, something like that. And unfortunately, I was not able to be here because of state legislative meetings. There was a meeting in the state capitol, a committee meeting that I had to attend. So I'm sorry about that. And as you have seen and have read, I've been very deeply engaged in working to redefine the city's fiscal relationship with Madison that, as Joan alluded to, has really been decades in the making. And one that we need to put the brightest light on in terms of fixing. So I know that this club has talked about a number of issues that are important to the future of Milwaukee, and one that I spend a serious amount of time on is the issue of public safety in our city. That's because for our residents, for our visitors, for people doing business all across Milwaukee, public safety is a paramount concern. People are really, really concerned about the level of safety and our efforts to increase safety here in the city. Crime, violence, and the sense of safety are really huge factors in the decisions that people make when they're looking to start a business in Milwaukee, to move a business into Milwaukee or out of Milwaukee. It's a central issue that folks look at when they decide to start a family in Milwaukee or not. So it's something that we pay a lot of attention to as well. When the city is not perceived to be safe, there are ramifications that happen throughout our entire economy. The fear of crime can undermine our quality of life, and it's not a problem that we can discount or that we can ignore. And I certainly don't in my position as mayor, because it's my belief that people have to feel safe. People must feel safe, and we have to work to make sure that every single Milwaukeean, every single visitor, every single commuter feels safe in our city. And look, I've got no higher priority than increasing safety. I think that folks have seen that in the efforts that I've been involved with since I've been mayor. And I want crime to be down significantly. And we do track those numbers, and we track them very, very closely. The chief of police, Jeffrey Norman, the director of the Office of Violence Prevention, and I, we present those numbers on crime, and we do that quarterly so that people can see, so that people know, so that we're being transparent about where Milwaukee is in terms of issues around crime. In fact, the police department updates crime statistics each weekday on their website. And as you can probably see, some of the trends that we have are positive, right? So crime in 2022, the one solid year I was mayor, I like to point out, crime was down compared to the previous year. And in the 5 months into 2023, those crime numbers continue to head in the right direction. So we're making good progress. We've got to continue to make good progress as well. Now, here are just a couple of examples. Compared to just last year, at this time, homicides are down 35% in Milwaukee. Homicides are down 35% in the city of Milwaukee. Auto thefts. A year ago, everybody was talking about auto thefts in the city. Those are down 32%. In overall serious crime, what the Federal Bureau of Investigation calls Part 1 crime, they're down 15%. 15% in the city of Milwaukee. And so we've got to build on this really good progress on crime. It's good progress, but we're not done yet. We need to continue to keep our foot on the gas and build on the progress that we have. And I know that crime is much more than just excuse me if I can say it, statistics on a screen. As I've gotten older, it's harder to get some words out. Maybe because I'm talking to my kids so quickly to get them to do what I'm trying to tell them to do. But again, crime is more than just numbers on the screen. It's not just statistics. Lives are lost, people are hurt, property is damaged, and fear grows. And that's why we need to pay really, really close attention to it. The work to make our city safer is not just a matter for police, though. I say this constantly. The police chief, the police department of and by itself cannot do it. The Office of Violence Prevention of and by itself cannot do it. I, of and by myself as mayor, cannot do it. It takes all of us to be partners in public safety. Because there's no room on the sidelines. There really isn't. These neighborhoods are ours, and I need everybody to be involved in public safety. So I ask parents, I ask teachers, I ask mentors, I ask friends, I ask anyone that can make a positive influence on the life of somebody who may do something bad, to give guidance, to offer guidance, to help those young people in their life. And then when I say young people, I don't mean somebody who's like 14 years old. I mean young people, including people who are up to my age, 36. Because, hey, I heard somebody laughing. and I say that because, look, when I get text messages from the police department, which I do at all hours of the day, when I see shootings, whether they're fatal or non-fatal, many times it's a young person and usually a young man, and many times a young man of color who's in the mid-teenage years up to and including folks who are my age, sometimes a little older than that, but roughly that's the age frame, that's the bracket where we see most of our shootings, be they fatal or non-fatal. So if you're in a position where you can make a positive impact on the young person's life, then I encourage you to do it. So I was glad that Joan touched on the YMCA Sponsor a Scholar program that I was involved in years ago that helped me as a young person to get on a good path in life. So much so, and I think that Carrie Wall sitting in the back really appreciates this, that I wear this green YMCA wristband every single day because of my 20 years plus of involvement with that organization and the good work that it's done in my life and in the community. So we've got to take on crime and do it at its root cause. That means providing direction in the lives of young people. It means building a strong economy so that parents of young people in our city, they have access not just to good paying jobs, but access to a stable and good paying career with a supportive wage. It means strengthening neighborhoods and reducing transients as well. We've also got to work to reduce gun violence in Milwaukee too, because there are too many guns in the hands of people who simply should not have them. When I talk about gun violence, it's not some crazy left wing conspiracy to say that people who would commit crimes, who would go out and hurt people, that those folks should not have access to guns. Like that's not a crazy thing to say, I don't think, right? All of us want to be safe. None of us in this room wants for our friends or our family members to be shot or killed. And so it's incumbent upon us all together to work to make sure that people who would do that sort of harm to our friends and to our family members, that they don't have that access. That's not a crazy thing to say, I don't believe. So as folks in this room would know, at the local level in the state of Wisconsin, I don't control gun law. No mayor does. No local official does. That's at the state and federal government level. We are, though, addressing other ways where we're looking to hold people accountable who are getting their hands on guns who shouldn't have them. And that's taking on the issue of guns that are stolen from cars. We've worked with the Milwaukee Bucks as they enter the playoffs this year to put signage up around Pfizer Forum to remind people that, look, if you can't bring it in, then don't bring it at all, right? If you cannot bring it in, then don't bring it at all. Don't even bring it down. And that's important because the scale of the gun theft issue is significant. So far this year, in 2023, some 223 guns have been stolen from cars in the city. The good news, though, is that the number is trending down because at this same time last year, 337 guns had been taken away from cars. So think about this. In a year's time, as much as 800 to 900 guns are taken from cars, and too many end up in possession of teens or adults who lack maturity, who lack training, and who lack peaceful disposition. Over the last several days of the holiday weekend, we had an inordinate number of people who were shot in our city. There were 3 homicides and roughly 20 non-fatal shootings over the past 4 days. And I'm concerned and hopeful that this is not a precursor to a violent summer here in the city. And I want to give you all a sense of what our police are up to, or what they're up against, rather. You may have seen some news reports on this, but on May 5th, on the near south side of the city, the police shot and wounded 2 people in separate incidents. Now, I don't have specific information about the shootings, but I want to give you all a better idea of what's happening in the area around where the shootings took place. The police department, the Milwaukee Police Department, has a system called ShotSpotter. It's a coordinated set of microphones that listen in and help to triangulate a location where shots are coming from. And the audio from ShotSpotter is recorded and it's archived. And the police department shared about 15 of these audio files. And so I want to just have some of them played for you just so you can hear what the police are up to and what they're up against in some of these shooting incidents that happen in the city. So let's play the ShotSpotter sounds. You ever hear that? That was all in one day. It was all in one day. That's rapid fire gun discharges. That's dozens and dozens of rounds. Perhaps, maybe they were just firing into the air. Who knows? That's still dangerous, as we just saw in the news story last night. But to me, I mean, that sounds like a war zone. It sounds like a war zone, and that's what the brave men and women of our Milwaukee Police Department go out and into every single day when they're addressing issues of gun violence in our city. So it's something that's got to stop. And what else needs to stop? The issue of reckless driving. Reckless driving needs to stop. And there's been a commitment from me in my time in office as mayor. In fact, on the very first day that I stepped foot in the mayor's office, I signed a proclamation, the first document that I signed, declaring reckless driving a public safety crisis in Milwaukee and corralling all of government to work together to find solutions to address the issue. And there are several guiding principles. The streets are for everybody, right? That's one of our chief, North Star guiding principles when it comes to addressing the issue of reckless driving. The streets are not just for moving vehicles from one place to another, from one community in Milwaukee County to another community in Milwaukee County. That's not what streets are for. They're for all users, right? So not just folks inside cars. They're for bicyclists, they're for scooter riders, and they're for stroller pushers, and they're especially for pedestrians. And so when there's disregard of the rules of the road, when folks are speeding, when they're passing on the right, when they're running red lights, all of those things, each and every single one of those actions to me is completely, totally, and utterly unacceptable. And we've got to work to fight those things, and that's exactly what we're doing. So there's a multi-pronged effort to do just that, to fight these things. I believe in enforcement. I think enforcement is critical, right? And so that's why the Milwaukee Police Department Traffic Safety Unit was launched in the 2nd Aldermanic District when I was alderman there as an enforcement mechanism, using the police department to collect data from folks who were concerned about reckless driving and sending out officers on a dedicated force specifically to enforce traffic law in areas that folks bring up to us. We worked, in addition to police, we partnered with other law enforcement agencies, including the State Patrol, which, as many of you folks in here know, does not patrol in Milwaukee County. But we worked with the State Patrol in our efforts to combat reckless driving and have them patrolling in the city of Milwaukee. And so we were happy about that. I championed, and it was passed, a couple of opportunities for the Milwaukee Police Department to be able to tow vehicles that are engaged in reckless driving behavior. And now we've towed hundreds and hundreds of automobiles since those policies have gone into effect. There have been physical changes to our roadways as well. There have been bump outs that have been added to the actual curb or the pinned on curb extensions that we've seen as well. Streets have been put on a diet. Some streets have been narrowed. We've been adding bike lanes. When I talk about bike lanes, I'm not just talking about paint on the pavement. I'm talking about actual protected bike lanes to get cars away from folks who are using bicycles, to make it safer for them, yes, but then also to put up an additional barrier for folks who are driving recklessly in our city. Driver's education is another piece, and our partners in the nonprofit sector are really, really taking a hold to making sure that people have the opportunity to get the skills that they need, whether it's the Center for Driver's License Recovery or whether it's our partners at the Greater Milwaukee Urban League and others. And we're learning best practices from other cities as well. There is an international organization of cities that are called Vision Zero, where they're envisioning zero fatalities on roads for pedestrians caused by automobiles. In the state of Wisconsin, there had only been one city that was a Vision Zero community. That was the city of Madison, our state capital. Now there are two. I champion, the council passed, and now Milwaukee is a Vision Zero community as well. I believe our Vision Zero coordinator is starting just today, as a matter of fact. Another thing that we've moved forward on in the city since I've become mayor to address the issue of reckless driving is joining the National Association of City Transportation Officials, or NACTO. And so that'll provide guidance for our redevelopment of roadways to make it safer, again, for all users. Because because the streets are not just for cars, they're for all users of the roadway. The traffic safety unit that I mentioned earlier, it posts data on its website. Well, The progress is not necessarily as dramatic as the reductions in serious crime. We are still transparent in sharing where we stand. Speaking of where we stand, Milwaukee stands at the edge of some pretty dire fiscal calamity. Milwaukee's fiscal challenges present some daunting challenges. As Joan mentioned, this has been roughly 30 years in the making. This is decades in the making. But now we're here. And fortunately for me, I got elected when we're just about to hit the edge of the cliff. So it's my responsibility to fix it, right? So in all seriousness, though, the situation that we face is very serious in the city of Milwaukee. As our costs have risen, our revenue just simply has not kept up. It just hasn't. Every department in city government feels the squeeze. And I know that Rob Henkin from the Wisconsin Policy Forum, he has pointed out over the years that this is an issue that really needs to be addressed. And he shared some of that, I think, with you over the course of the past couple of months here as well. And several factors have led to this point. Our pension costs, which are driven largely by police officer and firefighter benefits, they've climbed. At the same time, funds from the state government, the shared revenue program, they just have not grown. They haven't grown for decades. In fact, they've been cut and stagnant for that time. And as I mentioned earlier, I've been in Madison quite a bit recently, including some very late night meetings. I think I'm doing Madison actually tomorrow again. Now, state legislation that sets Milwaukee on a sustainable course is within sight for the first time in 30 years. First time in 30 years, we're in a position where finally we are able to work with the state and get an infusion of resources to help the city of Milwaukee be on a stronger financial footing. And that's good news. The agreement that we've reached includes a 10% increase in the shared revenue payment, along with a 2% sales tax for Milwaukee. Still undetermined, though, is whether or not that sales tax will be implemented by going to a public referendum, or if it would be implemented by a vote in the Milwaukee County Council and then signed by me as the executive of this jurisdiction. A 2% sales tax, for those who may be wondering, in the city, along with the additional fraction of a percent for Milwaukee County, it seems like a lot. Even with these increases going into effect, Milwaukee's sales tax will be in line with other large cities in the Midwestern United States. And for those of you that may not be aware, Milwaukee is, I believe, the only big city, the only first-class metropolitan city in the United States that does not have the ability to levy a sales tax. That's pushed purely on state revenue that, again, has been flat and declining, and property taxes, right? So we're the only big city that does not have this additional tool. And so we're finally working to fix that. We're so close to getting something done there. And that again, is a good thing for the city. So rather than focus on the dire outcome of what would happen if we don't get the revenue, I want to focus on what will happen, what can happen if we're able to secure the additional revenue. With more police, then answers for calls for service, they'll be quicker. Firefighters and paramedic response times, they will be able to improve. I was introduced by our city librarian, Joan Johnson, and if we get the revenues, then our libraries will be able to continue to bring new programs, locations, and services to residents all across our city. And I know there's been a lot of conversation, including in the media, about whether or not Milwaukee, has been fiscally prudent over the course of the past couple of decades. Well, I'm here to tell you that Milwaukee's run a very lean government in recent years. We've cut employees, we've increased the use of technology, and we've kept wage increases low. So low that now I'm in a position where I can't afford not to increase wages for city employees because they're walking out the door. Because as a city employee approached me just the other day and said, "Hey, I've been working for the city for a long time. I haven't had a raise effectively in 10 years." In 10 years, right? This is a person whose cost of living has gone up, who's got kids, who, for those of you who have kids or grandkids, that the older they get, the more expensive they get. I know I just dropped like $500 on my son's softball stuff the other day. Not fun, but you got to do it, right? So When you think about folks like that, it's important for us to make sure that they also are getting an increase. They hadn't been for the past decade, and now we're working to correct that. Additionally, with outside funding, we've brought in Ernst & Young, EY, to look at our operations, and they're well into their review, and I anticipate recommendations in the coming months. And we're open to good ideas, always have been in the city of Milwaukee. Speaking of good ideas, economic development is always a good idea in my eyes. I'm the development mayor. I want to see buildings go up. I want to see jobs get created. I want to see a strong economy in Milwaukee. So even with our fiscal challenges, Milwaukee's private sector economy is still really, really strong. Companies are hiring. Construction is underway at, get this, not one, not two, but three 30-story or more towers. There's the Couture right across the street here, 44 stories. There's the Hines development over at St. Paul and Water Street. That's going to be 31 stories coming out of the ground right now. Sites being prepped in the Edison, another mass timber project just to the north of the Marcus Performing Arts Center, 32 stories right along the bank of the Milwaukee River. So things are booming, things are happening. Construction is happening in Milwaukee. And companies are making new investments here as well, bringing jobs and new office buildings to Milwaukee. I get the chance to chat with mayors from across the United States. And when I tell the mayors that in Milwaukee, we've not seen the same sort of shrinkage in office space as some of the other cities are seeing, that we're seeing an actual investment from businesses, they look at me green with envy. They want to be in the position that Milwaukee is in. So we should all feel very proud about what's happening right here in our city. So a couple of highlights. So Komatsu built its North American mining headquarters in the Harbor District. Right Height relocated from the suburbs, and they're now in our Reed Street Yards Business Park. Milwaukee Tool has reimagined the old Assurant building, and it's creating over 1,000 jobs right downtown. Northwestern Mutual, with a $500 million investment, is bringing jobs downtown and expanding its campus with a reconfigured office tower. And Pfizer, which is a Fortune 500 company, is moving its corporate headquarters to the old Boston store building on Wisconsin Avenue. And I know that everybody in here has probably got a credit card or a debit card. If you've got one of those in your pocket right now, like I do, you've got some Pfizer technology in your pocket right now, most likely. And so that global juggernaut that really could have moved its offices anywhere, right? They're based in Brookfield now. They could have gone to New York, New Jersey, where their CEO sits. They could have gone to Georgia, where they've got a large office presence. They could have gone to Omaha, where they've got a large office presence. But no, my direction to the Department of City Development was to get to yes. Get to yes, get them here. And now we're on the cusp of them opening their global headquarters right here in the city of Milwaukee, bringing jobs and growing jobs right here in the city. And that's great. And of course, in addition to these new investments, I honor long-standing companies that have defined Milwaukee for generations. You know, companies like Harley Davidson, companies like Allen Bradley, Rockwell Automation, companies like Johnson Controls, companies like Usingers. And I don't know if Fritz is in the house, but I know Fritz usually hangs around here. And the 175-year-old Bentley companies. And we just heard from our past president, Todd, here as well. So thank you, Mr. President. So Milwaukee is humming along with a very positive vibe. Really, really is. And we're building our future on a very strong foundation. And so speaking of the future, what does the future look like? Where do we want Milwaukee to go? I want the world to know what a great city we have right here in Milwaukee, with our beauty, with our culture, with our quality of life. I look forward to welcoming the delegates and the tens of thousands of reporters from across the United States and around the world who will descend upon Milwaukee next year for the Republican National Convention. And I want them to share the story that's happening in Milwaukee. And as many of you have seen and heard and read, I want Milwaukee to grow. I don't think that we should be nibbling around the edges and trying to stay a city of roughly 600,000 people. We should be trying to grow our population, right? And so I think we should be ambitious, and we should aim to increase Milwaukee's population to 1 million people. We shouldn't settle for less. We should aim for more, and that's exactly what we're doing. And most of all, I want to fully realize the potential that we have in Milwaukee. And I think all of us in this room knows about the potential that we have here. It is untapped. It is untapped. We should tap into it, and we should let it flourish. I want folks to know about the potential that we have in Milwaukee. I want our residents to have both the skills and opportunities to support their families, to be able to stabilize their neighborhoods, and share an optimism about the life that they have right here in our city. And it starts with our young people. I want them to be able to achieve in school. I want them to get direction in life so that they see what is possible. And I want them to build Milwaukee's future. And I want all of us, the adults in the room, to make those investments that I talked about earlier, your time, your energy, guiding them in the right direction. I want young people in Milwaukee to head in the right direction. I want them to be positive, contributing members to society and not people who take away from society. And they can do that with you and with your help. So on that note, I'll take a couple of questions. Thank you.
We have time for about 2 or 3 questions. So if you do have a question, please form a line behind me.
I'm older than I used to be, so I can't run as fast. Mr. Mayor, I am so appreciative of you. I'm proud of you, if I could say that. At 68 and you 36, you inspire me. Thank you.
Thank you.
You know, before I became a corporate trainer, I cut my teeth working with young kids that were caught up in the judicial system. And I saw a lot of promise and hope if I could just get them to see something different. And I wanted to be that difference. When I fast forward and I look at the people in this room, their policy influences. And each day their words can make a difference in what happens in the streets of Milwaukee. And the support that you need is what they can actually support to actually make happen. My first question is, what more do you need from these policyholders in order to be able to do that? 2 things I want to say to you while you're thinking about that. One thing is that I know that young people need not only to be able to see what hope looks like, but they need to know that they have the ability to achieve it. The other thing I want you to know, I'm not giving up. So I come to these meetings every week and I show my face and I get myself involved because I want people to know that they can make a difference with the policies that are there. So talk about your policies a little bit that's really making a difference with these young people in the community.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And thank you for not giving up. You know, it's so easy to give up. Anybody can give up. What's hard is to keep pressing forward, even in the face of adversity and challenge and obstacles. So I appreciate you not giving up, and I'm not giving up either. I'm not giving up either. Like this is a huge opportunity for service and uplifting our community. When I'm talking about my position and opportunity to serve as mayor. But again, no one person can do this alone. I can't do it alone. Police chief, schools. Everybody's got to be a part of the solution. And you staying engaged, that's powerful. It's powerful. And I encourage other people to do the same. Talking about supporting young people in Milwaukee. As I mentioned, I had the opportunity to participate in a number of youth serving programs at the YMCA of Metropolitan Milwaukee as a young person growing up. And today, I know the value of those programs. I know the impact that they can have on kids. And so I bring that with me to the mayor's office. That's why just this past week, we celebrated our inaugural Peace Week in my administration. And it was a week of activities. There was a peace walk, there was a faith breakfast, there was a conversation on domestic violence, there was a gun summit, there was a Heal the Hood festival and block party, there were church visits. I think one of the crown jewels of that week was bringing youth serving organizations from across Milwaukee together, because we typically in this community, for whatever reason, and we're breaking it down, we work in silos, right? And so we brought these youth serving organizations together in front of the press to say, if you're a young person in Milwaukee, if you're a parent or a grandparent of a young person in Milwaukee, and you want to find something positive for them to do, here it is. Here it is. If you want to play basketball, if you want to swim, if you want to have a makerspace, if you want to go to a camp in the middle of the state somewhere, if you want to eat, if you want to work, there are opportunities for you in this city right now. Right now. In addition to that, last year, I noticed that there were young people who were being recruited, some young people as young as 10 years old, into stealing cars, joining up with the Kia boys, and all that. And so we started a program to counteract that. Program is called Camp Rise. It's sort of an offshoot to our Earn and Learn Summer Youth Jobs program that I'm sure many of you have heard of before. It's been around for well over 20 years. We're going to put over 1,000 young people to work this summer in that program. Now we've got this additional component called Camp Rise, where we're working with kids as young as 10. So those same 10-year-olds who were possibly recruited into stealing cars, we're providing another alternative path for them to be involved in something positive, where they have mentors, where they have people who care about them, where they're getting exposure to things outside of their neighborhood, and where they're learning how to make an honest buck with an honest day's work. We're doing all those things. In Milwaukee, because of this program, we believe may be the only large city in the United States of America that is doing workforce development with kids as young as 10 years old. So Milwaukee is leading the way. Milwaukee is leading the way with programs like that. And asking where folks in this room might be able to help, it's our partners over at Employ Milwaukee that is administering the program. But every year we have to go out and we have to fundraise to keep the program going. And last year it was so successful, we had 200 young men, 200 boys of color who otherwise would have been susceptible to stealing cars, participate in the program. The big criticism that I got last year was, well, if this is 200 boys, well, where are the opportunities for girls? So this time we got those 200 boys. Now we've grown it where 50 girls are participating as well, right? So we're making a positive impact on young people so we're making a policy impact, a positive impact on the lives of young people using the experience that I had as a kid growing up in programs that make a difference in my life that I learned from the YMCA of Metropolitan Milwaukee.
Thank you, Mayor, and good afternoon. My question is about your initiative to curb reckless driving in Milwaukee. What do you say to some who might think that some of those interventions in terms of the barriers on the roads are racist and paternalistic? This is coming from a resident who lives on the north side of Milwaukee.
That they're racist?
Racist and paternalistic based off of where they're located. And then also, does it go with the culture of some of the driving culture there in the city of Milwaukee on the north side?
Well,
for example, like the biking culture, it seems a little bit imposed on some of those residents.
Well, I'll tell you this, that I just took a drive in my personal vehicle. I don't get to do that too often, but I did this weekend because I had a honey-do list. So I was going to get some stuff for Memorial Day, and I was driving on Capitol Drive, and I saw some of the pinned-on curb extensions that we've added to that street. This is near Midtown Center. I used to live on 63rd and Free Branch, just a 1 block north of Capitol Drive. I passed through the intersection of 60th and Capitol literally every single day for the past probably 6 or 7 years. And the amount of accidents that I saw at that intersection was atrocious. The number of lives that were lost at that intersection, including the life of a Milwaukee police officer, was atrocious. And when you look at streets like Capitol Drive, which is one of the most dangerous streets because of reckless driving in the entire state of Wisconsin, we took action. We took action. And it's not just on the north side. You know, these improvements to the roadway, they've happened in locations all across the city. As a matter of fact, those same improvements you talked about, when we kicked off the program to alert the public that these were coming, it wasn't on the north side. It was down on the south side in Bayview, near Humboldt Park, because the reckless driving activity had happened there as well. So we're making improvements all across the city and using data to back it up. Like we're targeting areas where pedestrians have been hit in our pedestrian high injury network, right? So that's what we're doing there. And in terms of biking infrastructure, look, I understand that biking is not just a luxury for, people of means who are white who live on the east side of Milwaukee, right? I know that people of color like to bike too. And the reason that you don't see many of them out there is because they don't feel safe doing that. That's why it's important for us to make sure that we improve the roadway for that purpose too. On the north side, what we did do when we kicked off the construction season for this summer, we talked about this this improvement that we're making on Walnut Street between 20th Street and 12th Street. That's going to be a model for the city, where we've got shrunken lanes for driving, and we've got the protected bike lanes and a network that I want to build out for all users of the roadway, especially bicyclists on the north side, on the south side, and every other area of Milwaukee. And why? One, because it's safer for them. Two, because it cuts down on the issue of reckless driving. Three, it's healthy too. Right? It's healthier for folks, for their physical health and for their mental health, to be able to go out and ride a bike and experience the city from that vantage point. And we're doing that. We started that off on the north side. So the curb extensions, the pin-on bump outs, they're all over the city. We kicked it off on the south side. And for the biking programs, we started our big infrastructure investment, 50-some projects, including that very large one, and we did that on the north side. So it's not racist. We're addressing the issues all across the city of Milwaukee because that's what it needs. It needs a citywide approach, and that's exactly what we're taking.